I think we've tried to elevate the benchmark in fitness design through the eyes of the instructors. And that's where it all started. You know, this is not about me, but I was teaching spinning, the original Mad Dog, you know, in the early 90s, and yoga at a gym that was designed by an architect. And it didn't meet the needs. And I was so frustrated. And so I made a deal with the owner. I said, look, this is how you get your way. I said, I'll make a deal with you. If you just let me redesign this studio, you don't have to pay a dime, and if your membership doesn't double in a year, I won't turn in my receipts. It's a win-win, right? So suddenly, nights and weekends, you know, I was working all night. We transformed it completely, and this was in 1992. This was probably the first studio.
We remember.
Do you remember? You were there.
We were there, we were there.
Most of the people were in diapers then, but nonetheless, 20 bikes went to 40, 40 went to 60, and for 10 years, there was not an empty seat. And that's momentum. So yes, you can design it, you can buy the equipment. We had people riding broken bikes just to be in the presence. A stage where we could have 6 instructors if we wanted to, so it wasn't just about me. But nonetheless, so I took that concept and I started knocking on doors, you know, because I also taught yoga, and I realized that there was a respect in yoga. Nobody leaves, nobody comes in, but the architects back in the day, there's a mirror, right, and a glass, and everybody waves, like it was just ridiculous. So I knocked on doors very quietly, and of course people laughed and said, boutiques are a fad, who would ever want that? Why would you want to ride a bike in the dark? And so I realized that they didn't understand. And so everything that I do moving forward is through the eyes of instructors, because they're the ones, as you know that, they're the heart and soul. And if instructors are happy, you're very happy. If they're not happy, they call me and they open against you. And so everything that we do, in fact, I would say 90% of the phone calls that I get are from instructors who are so frustrated because whoever designed their space or whoever owns it never taught a class. And like, if you've never had the joy of a playlist, how can you possibly design like a restaurant? The first thing we want to know is the menu, and then we can design the kitchen. And so we go in from a different approach, and we also believe that instructors can do much more than put a few batteries in a mic pack. So we provide creativity. Creativity cannot be purchased. It cannot be stolen. You can't look at it on Pinterest. It comes here. And so we design spaces for the next 10 years. Anything new triggers momentum, but it won't sustain momentum. A new studio, a new gym, it's great for maybe a year or two. And then 10 years, where are they? And in that original story I told you, 10 years later, we did not have an empty seat. And there's more to that than the exercise. Fitness is between the ears, not below the neck. And so because of the creativity, we add things to the walls for the future. You may not know we may not need it now, but things continually improve. It's new today, it's improving. So every time you come back, you're like, how can it possibly get better? So value and price are two different things. If you're charging $20 for a class, if it doesn't have value, they're not going to come for free. If you're charging $20 for a class and it's amazing, I'd be willing to pay $40. $20 is a deal. You see the difference? And so little thoughtful features. So when we start designing these, usually on the left-hand side, we're talking about what do you believe, you understand, we can go into that later. Are you inspirational, competitive, rebellious? We design the space to hold what you believe. Everyone believes something different. And so once we understand what you believe and write it down, then we start looking for the space, and then magically it comes together. But, you know, little tricks, little tips, there's an element of surprise. Anything that you use too much, you've lost their attention. If it's not enough, you've lost them. There's that little fine spot. You've got to tease them.
How do you get that out then?
Oh. Well, so I'll give you an example of a studio we did in Dallas 12 years ago called the Ride House. And sadly, they lost the lease. Trader Joe's, I think, has a parking lot now or something. It had nothing to do with COVID. So anyway, but this was one of the first examples. So when the movie 50 Shades of Grey came out,
Never heard of it.
You ever heard of that one? We did 50 Shades of Green, and I was honored to work with the owner of that. He was one of the original rhythm instructors when Reebok certified in '92. That was way, way back, so long, long ago. But nonetheless, 5 songs into the class, lights go down. And little things like what you believe. Do you believe that if you open the door, the light comes in? As an instructor, you lose the confidence. Think about Broadway. Once the doors close, the actor's on stage. So we design secret panels that move. So if somebody wants to slip in, it never bothers the instructor because you're so focused on that. You've got them in the palm of your hand, right? And the minute the light comes in. So nonetheless, 50 Shades of Green, 5 songs into the class, lights go down. A male stripper slips in.
Of course they do, exactly
Of course
what
they
you're
do.
expecting.
Of course they do. Lights come up green, and nobody said a word. That was the beauty of it. Nobody knew it. He weaves his way through. Now, we believe that, we'll just talk about cycling for now. We believe that if the instructor should help someone on the 3rd row if they come unclipped. Not everybody believes that. Certain brands pack the bikes in because they don't want their instructor getting off the podium. But we did at the Right House, that's their job. So we put an extra 18 inches between the 2nd and 3rd row. Meanwhile, he can weave his way through, dropping articles of clothes. Went out the side door, never to be seen again. I'd pay $40 for that. I'm just saying.
I paid a lot more for that.
I'd pay a lot more for that. I want another class. But if you do it too much, and so the whole point was that like it never happened.
Right.
That's when people go and talk. Right. They don't talk about, I got this many miles I burned. Nobody cares. Life is hard. Don't make me win my class. So whether it's no matter what the element is, there's a creativity. So the instructors just keep getting better and better and better, and they're like, I've got a surprise for you. Salt Lake City, we did. It was actually Centerville. It was called Cure. We like to name them. We brand them. I'm a control freak, but it's like thousands of pieces, and so everything comes together. But Cure with a Q. Be better humans. And so again, it was a boxing kind of a hit concept. 10 songs into this, a drum corps just marches in, and you're just boxing with the drums, and it's like, this is like tribal. It's overwhelming. That's what people talk about. And so we design spaces so that allows, that's able to happen. If you just, want to sketch something off, that's great, but think about a yoga studio, one of my favorite. Drives me nuts. If you're lying there in Shavasana, and by the way, everyone on my team, we go in undercover. Right. We take classes undercover.
Secret shop, yep.
We're doing a huge project in Montreal. It started in 2016 from the ground up. It opens in about 4 months. It'll be the first solar village in Quebec, but they wanted a spray tan, so I sent all my guys to get spray tan. We have to understand the ventilation and what's about. So nonetheless, we're in there in this yoga studio, we're in Shavasana, and we hear the teacher going out to get the chill towel. Clump, clump, clump. And I'm like, the captain does not leave the ship. That's 30 seconds. You could have changed my life. And instead, I hear you. We put in a 2-way refrigerator. The janitor loads it from the back. Never leave the class. But if you don't understand at the beginning, if that's not what you believe, if you want the teacher to go out, we all hear you talking and whispering. When it comes to wellness and massage, you're in this space. The ceiling is just as important. And so every single detail is through the person that uses it. And most fitness architects don't teach classes. Most equipment salesmen don't make a playlist. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference, is that we're in the trenches. We get our hands dirty, and that's, I think, the difference of why we design with a little different approach.
So there's a little bit more to that. I mean, you're incredibly creative, and we can just hear the way that you approach it. So you're walking in the moccasins, you're getting that. But there is also such an enormous skill set that sits behind building what we don't know we need yet, or want is perhaps a better word. Because I feel like you're stepping into the emotions, you're getting rid of the hygiene. It's like there's hygiene factors, and most people are getting those wrong, like the clumping and the door and the light, and these are just obvious things. What background have you got to be able to meet the needs of the creative ask once you and your team have gone in and gone, we're going to fix that, that's not quite right, I don't feel this. Like, what technical training have you got? Obviously, you've got a big design background, but you're thinking about things differently.
They say it takes 10 years to be an overnight sensation, right? Yeah. 10 years of trying out what doesn't work. Right. And relentless. You know, in the beginning, I was giving away, I was bartering, let me do this, U.S. Army, anything, let me help you. And I learned what works. And what I also realized is that just like lighting and sound, if you don't know why you need lighting, don't waste your money on it.
Right.
And so a lot of people think, oh, I'm failing if I just had this. And I go back to Soul Cycle again. You know, they don't need all this lighting because they just need two candles as part of their class. I will honor you. And so you have to understand, why do you need this before you invest the money in it.
So you've gone in and you've seen the need and you're like, oh, we could make this so much better. Oh, yeah. But then you're actually having to pull on technical skills of how you can make that happen logistically. So yes, there's design, like the two-way fridge, very simple example, but not everyone's going to get to that conclusion. So you actually made that leap and then created that thing. You're doing ventilation. You're questioning whether or not you need all the lighting or the ventilation or the colours or 3 levels. You're asking all those questions based on the beliefs of the people. So I'm just wondering how you match your skill set with the need.
I can tell you that the myth of the studio owner is that I have experience in one area, so I must understand another. Mm-hmm. Our most successful clients say, teach me everything. Mm-hmm. So for example, to answer your question, we don't advertise. Mm-hmm. All right, we're just very difficult to find. I'll get once in a while a request on my website, a phone call, and it's the personality and the connection comes first. If it's someone who says, I've got 6 gyms, I own them, I've been in fitness all my life, I worked in School of Business, that's not who we want to work with. Mm-hmm. We start from the beginning as startups. We teach you everything. We even teach you construction terms so that you can go in. We help with financing. We prepare you so that you can walk in and present yourself with knowledge. And so everything from pitch decks, and we do a lot of donation services, mm-hmm. you know. We just kind of make up the prices depending on what the person is going to do with the studio. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is philanthropy-based. Mm-hmm. We're helping a couple of kids right now in South Georgia, and absolutely we'll help you. Mm-hmm. You know, but the point is to start at the very, very beginning and help them understand what they're getting into. They have the passion, they're the trailblazers, they don't want to be a franchise, and those are 2 different personalities. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They live or die by their own intuition, and they don't blame people. But we hold their hand every step of the way. And so we start getting to understand, for example, naming them. Usually I like to name, or at least help them. If people are not wearing your shirts in your retail, if you're not making a substantial amount off of that, it's a really bad brand, and it's a logo that nobody likes.
But you told me when we met, we'd had a sort of a conversation about a year ago about T-shirts, and I remember writing it down. You was like, look, people don't care about your brand, they're interested in a statement.
Absolutely.
So just
explain you go back to Nike, you know, it's just do it. Nobody really cares about that. And so what happens is people get fixated on a name. And I have a pretty strong marketing background, okay? So I dip into that a little bit. But it's more about who you are. And what you believe. Your brand is not what you do or sell. Your brand is here. And so normally what we like to do is start taking concepts. For example, Shine Cycle in Brunei. That's a good example. I got a random request for information, Abel, Kaya, I had no idea. I intentionally will never Google anybody. I will never research who sends a request. I don't want to know about you. I just want to hear your story, and we don't do FaceTime. I want to hear. Sometimes when you are looking at someone, they're not always completely honest. So we just schedule a call, and in the case of Brunei, wonderful conversation. That was the end of it. I'm here if you need me. If not, I don't follow up. They're big boys and girls.
I love it.
I mean, you know, if you want me, I'm here. And so about 6 weeks later, I got another email that said, hey, I'd like for you to talk to my business partner, Bahar Jeffrey. And at that time, I thought, I need to find Bahar Jeffrey. When I realized that this was the Princess of Brunei, and I wrote her back and said, girl, you didn't tell me you're the princess. Like,
yeah, you didn't ask, and you didn't Google.
Know. It's
and
like,
you didn't...
come on. And so because of that, you know, we changed her name and we kept everything very quiet. The world had no idea what we were doing behind the scenes. But I asked Azima, I said, tell me what you believe. What are some things about people that you believe? And I'll never forget, she said, I believe everyone has a little light inside of them. And sometimes it's a flicker, sometimes, So I started writing and I started researching, and at that moment, Shine Cycle was born. Shine is so Art Deco. Now, everything glowed. We powder coated the bikes gold, and so it's a hits concept as well. Very, very Art Deco and just gorgeous. And one nice thing is that the gold powder coated bike moves around so that no one ever knows who's on it, like the Golden Egg. And of course, we change the number, so when you book a class and they get a prize, it could be a massage, but every class, the bike moves. That's fun, but that came from getting to know the relationship of the client. In the case of Turn in Atlanta, that was one of my favorites. We found the location and helped them. Turn is part of the word nocturnal. 4 times a year when the seasons turn, the bikes, the kettlebells, the yoga mats go outdoors at midnight for nocturnal charity. So suddenly, sweat gold. And the studio design, walnut, black, it came to life just based on what you believe. Does that make sense? I put studios in categories. They're inspirational, competitive, rebellious. They usually go into one of those. And when there's conflict, that is one step closer to failure. The minute there's contradiction, the minute something does not work, and contradiction can be in vocabulary. So we even manage the words that come out of your mouth at the front desk. 10 words you'll always say, 5 words you'll never say. I've had clients call me to say, I'm gonna open a studio because if she calls me doctor one more time, judgment, we're judgment free, you know, we love everyone, but we're gonna judge your age and we're gonna judge your status. And it's fascinating. It's not a Southern thing. It's not Dr. Sir, ma'am, miss. It's just a judgment of age. And I always laugh and say, Madonna is not a ma'am, you know. But why would a 20-year-old, and so this goes to the front desk. The reason I'm telling you this is that when people stop leaving your class, they're not gonna tell you why. They just don't like something. It has usually nothing to do with the fitness. It's everything out. And so it's usually at the front desk is when the problems happen. There's conflict. And so we hammer out those words that will be said, words that your competitors use. Why would you use the same words to describe how different you are? If I hear state of the art one more time, it's like, why are you starting? I don't know. And so we have a lot of writers that help me as well, and we try to use fewer words that are very succinct. An audacious sound system, you've got my attention. State of the art, everybody's state of the art. It doesn't mean anything. So when we hear things that have been used over and over again, that's a sign that you won't last.